Well, hey there guys, so in this tutorial I'm going to be talking about how to create some wiggle scripting to make this neat little particle effect with Lens Flare, and then also play around with the Kaleidoscope filter. So let's just do that process I just showed you once more. Okay, now I can always change these. I'm actually going to make this be a different color for now just so we can see it a little better. I could always change the color. So let's do that whole process of creating that neat little effect. So what did I do? I made a solid. I put an effect of a lens flare. Okay? I opened up the effect and I clicked Alt and clicked on the stopwatch for the flare center. This allows me to type in this variable, and I believe we did big number first, small number second. Or we did small number first, big number second. There we go. And you see this thing kind of zips all around the screen. And make that even slower instead of 4. So when I hit the space bar, you see that this animates randomly all over the screen, and that's pretty neat. Now, I can create an asset like text, or if I had a picture, even if I brought in that little butterfly, right? I could just bring in that butterfly here even. Just do that. Import file. Now I'm going to bring in just the beginning butterfly, not the complex butterfly. Import. So that would probably be the butterfly composition itself. Yes, I had to stop this rendering as well of the video because it said something like 2 hours. Okay, so I'm going to go butterfly 01, but I'm going to double click it because you see here it's flying all over the screen. Well, what I want to do is I just want it to have it be in place on the screen, which means I got to find the body layer and deactivate position and all these other factors. Right? So it's not moving at all. It's in one place. Now I can come to my comp, which has my dancing around little lens flare, bring the butterfly 01 into it. Okay. But my butterfly 01 needs to be aligned with that lens flare. Just like that. Maybe I'll change my anchor point a little bit so it's dead center. Like so. And then it's just an issue of parenting the position, or in this case, I can even take the entire layer to that, not the solid, but to the flare center, which is this guy going to, where's that? There it is. Flare center. But you see, just doing normal parenting, it doesn't let me do that. See that? And that's because I need to literally take the position here, hold Alt, click. So I now get the little pick whip here inside just position, not the whole layer, but just the position. And that'll let me parent the position to the lens flare center. You see how it highlights now? And now the butterfly is going to follow that random movement. See that? Of that lens flare. Now, obviously, he's flying backwards, which doesn't make any sense, so that might require me to have to keyframe the rotation front and back, as it moves around the screen. There's a lot of really creative ways here to add dynamic elements to this, besides just physically setting a keyframe. So I've made the butterfly wings fly up and down, physically keyframing. But then the position of random movement can be done by using a script like wiggle. Let's keep going here. Watch this. Okay, so I'm just going to use my blue solid here. Make sure I highlight it. I'm going to create another neat effect. Okay? Let's see. I want to do a simulation. We haven't talked much about these. And the simulation I want is a particle, CC particle systems. Now you see what that did? That kind of destroyed that layer. So just be aware that it destroys the layer. So this might require me to have another new solid. I'll make this just be a different color. Okay, so that new solid. Now let me go ahead and put on this particle system. And you see, what is the particle system? It's just generating particles. See that? Nothing too fancy about it. But I can program these particles to have things like a different birth rate, longevity, the producer, which is again the locator, which is that central dot, the physics of it. Now it's explosive right now. If I do a directional, okay, let's maybe increase gravity. I'm going to turn velocity to 0. And so now you're going to see that this particle system is just giving me almost like a waterfall of particles. Let's actually make the longevity be less. So they're not going to last as long. Okay, so you see it almost looks like flames, these particles. I can even tell the particle. Yeah, right now I'm just doing lines, but I could have it say, hey, start a color. Let's have it start maybe pink realm. Let me have it end or die in the yellow realm. Okay, you see now, I just changed the colors. I'm going to turn gravity down to a lower number here. Okay. So you see, it's just a showering of particles. See that? Just a tiny showering of particles. Now watch what's really neat here I can do. Whoops. Because remember, those particles are being born from this little dot. That is the producer. See, right here. Watch this now. I'm going to alt-click on that stopwatch. Okay? That will now give me the producer to have a Pickwick. Right here, that I'm going to do just like I did before and parent the producer of the particles to be Pickwick parented to the lens flare center. Okay? So that now, wherever that producer goes, that lens flare producer, it's controlling now the random movement of my emitter. And that's pretty cool. Start playing around with this more. I like that, but I'm going to go with white since my lens flare is white. I'll do my death to a pink. Maybe a little more purple. Okay, you see it. That. And we have these other things like, where's my inherit velocity? This is where it will inherit the movement, and so it'll send particles off in that direction. See, so it follows even better. Again, there's a lot of tutorials that talk about how to work with particles inside of After Effects. Yeah, I kind of like that. I can change my max opacity fade. Have them fade out a little bit more. I can put in a random seed value that just makes them come out further. And again, if I play around with things like radius, or even, again, playing around with gravity, or playing around with speed, that's how fast they're emitting from that. You can see just by changing from 0 speed to 1 speed, I get a totally different effect of these particles flying around. So it almost looks like the you know, the Disney little Tinkerbell, you know, or a magic wand or something like that. And that's a pretty cool effect. Now imagine if my solid, instead of being that blue, double click my, whoops, not double click it, layer solid settings, and let's put that to a dark value. So that now it really does show up as a neat little sparkly thing. See that? I just think that's a really cool, very, very cool effect. But I have to kind of do this, you see, on different layers. I just think that's just a really neat effect. And it's going to be random every single time because it's using wiggle. It's not following a set, you know, coordination. There's actually a tutorial in After Effects out there called Fireworks, where it uses things like this, and then it causes different events at different times. In fact, why not? Let's have fun with that. Right? How would I do that? Well, I would need another solid. Doesn't matter about color, because we're going to do the same particle system. Okay? And we're going to do right about here at this point in time, where I'm going to say birth rate is 0, meaning no particles. Go 1 frame forward, do a birth rate of, say, 6 or something like that, which is keyframed, to then go 1 frame forward back to 0. And so in that one particle on top I just made is just going to shoot out, boom, some particles, right? Like an exploding firework effect. Let's see, where's my keys? Go. That's where I had it at, what, 6. Let's do a larger number there, like 20. So I'll just have a bigger boom of, okay, of red, or I'm sorry, yellow. Let's say that these guys are going to be born purple, and then actually would be born white. Explosion, and then I'll have them death color be, well, let's pick something that works with the purple we're using. Maybe I'll go with an orange, like so. So they'll be born white. Now they need to fade out, so their longevity needs to be less. You see, I've got different types of, see, I got stars, spheres, polygons, all these. Let's try a star. Okay, so now there's stars that are going to pop out of there. See that? I'll say birth size will be 0.5. Death size will be 0.25. Producer, which is going to give me my physics and speed. Explosive, velocity, let's get that at number 2, so they come out a little faster. No, that's still too much. Go, gravity, give it a little inherent velocity. Not that much. Direction. Okay, all we need to do though, watch this, is again, Alt, click on the position. That turns it red. And now, take that Pickwick here, and where am I going to parent that to? I can parent it to the position of these others. I have to have them open. Hold on a second. So let's find that lens flare. See, right there. So let's take this Pickwick right here, and let's drag it onto the flare center. So watch now, and that's going to basically happen. Remember, that's happening here to like 5 seconds. So our firework goes up into the air, and right at 5, it's going to boom. See? Of course, then I would want to key the emission of these particles, or maybe key the lens flare down. Okay, so let's see here. I'm trying to find a spot. See, it keeps happening there, so let's go here. Let's have this happen at a different time. Let's have this happen right there. Okay, so right when that happens, I now need to come down to my flare brightness, key that, because I want it to turn off the second it explodes. Let's come here to the birth rate of our purple dragon particles. Go 1 frame forward, turn that off so it's no longer emitting, and turn the lens flare brightness to 0. Let's watch it now, okay? So I've got my little firework shooting around in the sky, my little rocket, and right there at those keyframes, it's going to emit an explosive particle, okay, and turn off the other particles. And this is where we've got all these other variables we can do here. Like I said, I can do that, take those particles, do an effect, find like things like glow to add more of a flash of light. Let's see, that would be in the stylize, glow. And right about here, that glow, right? See, and now my particles have more glow to them. Okay, they just boom, but everything else deactivates. So you could do a lot of very, very neat, cool effects besides just the motion graphics I've shown you so far. I mean, there's tutorials out there. Some people did this where they did like the particles that follow like a ribbon, or animate them, you know, and as they animate, they write out the name of a logo or something like that. Just gonna make another new composition here. So let's see, cop 1. Don't need butterfly. Well, I'll leave butterfly in here. Why not? In fact, let's have some really fun time here. Comp 1, comp 3. Okay, let's drop that in the back. So I just added the butterflies. Now, if you're wondering why you can't see the butterflies, that's because we need to change the blending mode. Okay? So that our initial lens flare is the black part is see-through. See that? So I just brought that in now and added it to the mix. Take this though, and I'm going to time stretch it and have it be half the time. So it's double speed. And again, you see how I'm just adding stuff to layers. Of course, my butterflies aren't moving anymore because I deleted my keys. Remember that? When I actually attached it to it. So it doesn't really work all that great. But I'm not done with this because I'm going to do some cool stuff here. Watch this. change my opacity of my butterfly layer. I want some there, but not a lot. Let's change it to being about 5% opacity. See, so it's there, but it's not crazy. Scale it up a little. I'm just going to use it as a graphic in the background. Rotate. Let's give it 2 full rotations. Right? I'm only going to use it for a neat graphic. So I need to scale it a little bit more. There we go. Okay? So that's just a graphic, a random graphic, just to add color and dynamic elements to it all. Okay? Now what can I do with this craziness? Well, watch this. There, new. Our composition new. It's nested into its own composition again. That was comp 5. Let's take comp 5 into comp 6. Right? So it's all now just one nested layer. What happened here? Oh, comp 1. Okay. Not comp 5, comp 1. No, that's not. It's only 1. Comp 1. Do I have more than? I have more than one comp 1. See, this is why we need to layer. Name our layers. There we go. So all I did is just nest it into one. Now watch with more cool effects. Okay, let's do simulation, and I'm going to do distort. See all these different things here that you can do. What am I looking for? CC Kaleido. Now Kaleido basically means kaleidoscope. So I can take that image that's there with all that crazy looking particles and just make a neat kind of like dancing mandala, you know, kind of graphic here. It's very cool. And you see there's different styles and the colors that show up here. I think it was Fruitopia used to be a beverage you could buy, and all their commercials featured these kind of mandala kind of animations. And you see we got flower, we got starlish. These are just going to give different effects. And what it's doing is just like a kaleidoscope. When you look through a kaleidoscope, it's just, you know, making the image kind of dance around using, you know, mathematical prisms is the best way to describe it. What if I say float the center? And so you see that particle, watch when the explosion happens right here at about 5, that's when the yellow particles emit. We get a flash of yellow. See that? With the glow. And so you can create some very, very neat, random, it's almost like some of the videos you'd see behind like a DJ or something at some festival. And if it's too dark, if it's not bright enough, if it's not enough contrast, you could always just throw an effect like a color correction here. See, like hue saturation. Add a little more master lightness. A little more saturation to it all, just to bring out the colors. I could even key the hue over time, right? So it just changes colors over time. See that? And you say to yourself, all right, okay, Mr. Liebman, what are we going to do with that? How could I possibly do something with that? Well, maybe you want to use it for a title. Maybe you want to, you know, use it for a TV commercial element or something like that, like an ad for something. So if I say, so, Play around with just some of this layout. Again, remember, we could do something like this in Photoshop as well. I just need to get the alpha off of this. Just fine. There we go. Just separate these guys a little bit more. Oops. Be wary, it's action title safe. We don't want this to be all the way to the edges. Okay, so let's say that there's my logo element, right? Don't forget, blending mode, stencil alpha. And now I've got all that dancing discotheque of mandala going on in my text. Just remember, though, that if we want to put it now against a background, we have to nest it into that background because the stencil alpha is dominating. Stencil alpha is dominating everything in this layer. Like that. To the point that even here at 5, that's when you have that yellow explosion, right? Of the firework right there. Boom. And that's where we get all that brightness and the glow coming through. So, pretty much limitless, again, what you could do with some of this stuff. I know I'm showing a lot of more complex element here than just, that's Starlish, there's Diacross. These are all different ways. Unfold, which basically, wheel is just wheel. There's different ways that they're basically splitting up and duplicating as if you're looking through a kaleidoscope. And you get some pretty neat stuff here. In fact, last but not least here, I'm going to come back to the very beginning here. Highlight those 3 layers. So that's the lens flare, that's the particles of the rocket, and then we have the exploding of yellow. I'm going to copy those. I'm going to paste them on top of this one. But you see, I paste them on top. They don't work because they're underneath. They're underneath this, which is basically stencil alphing. If I put them on top, it'll work. But really, the very best way to do it would be to nest it all together and then put them on top. Okay? Meaning, take them out, you composition it, nest it in here so that stencil alpha is no longer working on this layer. It worked on this layer. This layer does not have the stencil alpha, and then I can paste it on top of this, and it just kind of blends it much better than putting it on top of those layers. Okay. Just some neat stuff. In fact, I almost want to, when it explodes there, boom, I almost want to take the comp here, and why not play around with some of that? Let's put that glow back on. Okay? Come here and say, hey, glow radius 0, glow intensity 0, key. And immediately when it explodes, that's when these guys can go and glow out. Okay. So watch this little transition now. Right when it explodes, I boom, and the graphics kind of glow. It can simply be then, once you get all that massive glow, you can even take this guy right here, key opacity, and have it fade out. Maybe happen just a little bit sooner and a little bit quicker. Okay. And that's kind of neat there because you still have some of those sparkly particles falling, even though it's put out the lights. I mean, it could get to a point here even where, I could have some of these elements of the 70s show be in the forefront and be in the back. So that at points, the things here are in front of, and other points, it's in behind. Let's do this. Okay, so I basically have masked that, so it's just that. Watch now. I'm going to duplicate it, and the duplicate one, I'm just going to invert the mask, but I need to put the one I want in front at the very top. So that emitting rocket particle you see is behind the O, behind the H, but in front of the 7. And that's actually a very popular trend right now, is having graphics that, like text that appears not only in the forefront, but also the background, and your objects, your characters, video, whatever, moves through it. Yeah. Boy, that one came out perfect as far as the location of my firework. Oh, but it's missing. Now, again, that's only 8 seconds. So I need now to go get some other content, some other, things to turn into the 30-second artistic comp. Even though this is kind of, not really, an opening title. Maybe, let's just change it to San Francisco. So change anything you need to here to get some really neat effects. And boom, it updates right here. Just be careful because your mask is not going to be the same mask. So you're going to want to come back here to these masks we put on and remove them, right? Because that mask originally was for a different tech. So very cool ways that you can add more elements, create more artistic kind of elements for any kind of, infographic, motion graphic,